is a nearly 100-year-old brand from Switzerland that was barely known in this country. And so I was part of a management team brought in to basically turn around the brand and grow it, because natural and wellness is the hottest thing going on right now. This is an amazing brand, a rich history, tons of stories, but we didn't have a lot of money, and so influence was really important to us. So I'm going to talk today about influence versus influencer, because influence is bigger than just influencers, and that was really important to us as we grew this brand in the US, but also as we grew it authentically, because this brand must be an authentic brand in the natural space. Contrived, chemicals or made up stories don't really work with wellness, and they also, as many of you know, don't really work well with millennials and Gen Z, which is obviously the up and coming consumers. So, influence. It's a party, but it's a party that brands aren't invited to. So there's lots and lots of conversations happening online, but brands are not necessarily part of those conversations. There's actually an average of 30 to 40 more conversations about brand happening among consumers than actual interactions with the brand. And if you remember from this morning, you saw all those dots happening. Well, those dots are also, you could say the same for conversations, but the brands are only like 3 dots compared to the 5,000. So it's a really hard space to be in from a brand. On top of this, or maybe the root cause of it, is that brand messages are less trusted. But it's not for lack of trying. Brands spent $9 billion in Q4 alone on social to be part of conversations. But we're not really being able to insert ourselves. So this is an example of my sister. I'm not sure if you can read this on the left, but she's asking the Peloton mom group about what minivan she should buy. And in 24 hours, there were 183 responses, 24 hours. And this is the fastest market research for free that I've ever experienced in my brand life. But this is what's happening, and people are getting their recommendations from other people that they know, and not even people that they necessarily trust. It's just like-minded people that are in their connected groups. Nielsen Trust in Advertising places third-party voices above brand-owned voices in consumer trust. And that third-party brand influence isn't just influencers. It's way, way bigger than that. It's bloggers, it's journalists, it's their friends, it's their mom, it's celebrities now. And so we need to pay attention to all of these points of influence, because we need to influence the influence, essentially. So that brings me to the short list. So for the marketers in the room, this is the familiar brand funnel, or for agency folks, I'm sure you know this funnel as well. And as marketers, we generally have been focused on the top of the funnel, which is awareness and reach, or the bottom of the funnel, which is conversion. But there's this whole middle that the consumer is going through where they make their short list. And that's the brands that they would consider to buy. And the middle is probably the most important, because you can't go from the top to the bottom without going through the middle. If we don't pay enough attention to the middle, we will never get to conversion, and we will never get on the short list. And so we need to think about as brands as how can we really truly affect the middle. So why do brands and marketers focus on the top and bottom of the funnel? And there's sort of 3 main reasons that I can see. One is control. So as a brand, you want to control your message. You want to make sure that it sounds like your brand. You want to make sure it's saying the benefits that your brand offers. And the top and bottom offer the most control of your message. The second is just plain out comfort. So for people like me that started in marketing almost 2 decades ago, the top and bottom are really comfortable places. I know what reach equals. I know what those numbers mean. I understand conversion. And the middle is a newer, more modern way of looking at media, and it's a little uncomfortable. The third is measurement. So generally, it's really hard to place focus on things that you can't measure. Measure for yourself to make sure your money's going far, or even answering to senior management of what's the ROI, what was the ROAS, what was the cost per acquisition, and all these, you get thrown all these terms that you need to show good numbers and show that you're spending the money wisely. But unfortunately, just spending that money and getting those numbers doesn't necessarily mean that people want to consider your brand. It's a different measurement. And so the middle is important because it's the most active part of the funnel, and it's the place where all the conversations are taking place. So we need to pay more attention to it. So I'll tell you how we started at Weleda. If you want to impact the conversation, you have to start by identifying the voices. And so something that is very familiar as a brand person is to start with the consumer, and that's who we started with. So we started with our target consumer, and we started looking at all the voices surrounding her on social. And who were those voices? How many were there? How were they connected? And that's where we started. Then we mapped all the interactions between them, because it's not just the consumer at the center and offshoots to every influencer. There's multiple connections between all of these people. Is there a way to go? There we go. Okay. So I'm going to start by talking about one of the influencers that we felt was really important for our brand. And she's a makeup artist. That's one of the areas that we determined was a huge influence for our consumer, the whole beauty industry and makeup artists. Obviously, some makeup artists have huge followings. These are celebrity makeup artists, most of them. But what's more important for us are the connections. How many connections do they have to consumers, but also media, other makeup artists, industry experts in beauty, and how strong are those connections? So Patty's someone with almost 200,000 followers, so she's a pretty large influencer. But what's more important for us is she has 29 connections and networks. So that's huge in our space, of having 29 connections to these super important people that also influence our consumer. And the thing for Patty also is we saw media picking up what Patty was saying. So you had these big beauty publications that were actually using Patty's quotes, consulting Patty for what she thought about beauty. And so now it's going both ways to surround the consumer with all this information. We also saw that other makeup artists follow Patty. So she influences her entire industry, which then obviously for us drives economies of scale as we're trying to influence the consumer. The next influencer I want to highlight is Katie Deno. Katie's much smaller in followers than Patty, and actually when we got Katie, she was only about 15,000 followers. We're talking like a year and a half ago. But what's unique about Katie is the authenticity. And that's another key piece of using influence, that it has to be authentic. So Katie's a green beauty celebrity makeup artist. We looked at the brands she worked with. She works with very, very few brands, and they are very, very clean. We work in an industry where there's a lot of greenwashing going on with personal care and beauty, of what's really truly natural or not. And Katie is a makeup artist that believes in truly natural. She will not sell anything that's not, and she only works with a very, very small handful of brands. So for us, why we chose her was not only her 20 connections in network, but also her authenticity, which is really meaningful for our brand. Lastly, another influencer I want to highlight is Taryn Toomey. Taryn is a wellness advocate and innovator in the space. She's the founder of The Class, which is a new wellness workout focused on the mind and the body. She has nearly 50,000 followers, so again, not a giant influencer, and 12 connections. What's unique about Taryn is that she straddles the beauty world and the wellness world. So she reaches the most important beauty publications and the most important wellness publications. And there are not a lot of people like Taryn that can do that. And she has beauty publications actually following her to see what she has to say about beauty and wellness and the intersection. So how did we put this all together? So the middle is very much about authenticity, and that's what we were focused on for this first looking at influencers. But authenticity doesn't necessarily get you what you need as a brand or drive enough growth. You know, if you're authentic and you don't get to a lot of people, I mean, that's not really going to go very far. It's going to take you a really long time to grow, and we did not have that time. So we looked at who are the opinion shapers, those are the influencers, but then who are the opinion distributors? Who are the people that distribute those opinions, amplify those voices, and create the buzz and volume and reach that we needed? The first part of that is to let each do what they do best. So don't try and mix, you know, an influencer to be authentic and drive reach. That's going to be really hard because unfortunately those people generally don't look authentic online, and so your message winds up being diluted. So we let our influencers create. They're the creators. I mean, we have our brand, they have their brand too, and their brand has driven their influence online. So we don't want to just insert our brand and have them be the spokesperson, because then their brand gets lost and it becomes inauthentic. So we let the influencers create, we give them the tools. We talked about briefs earlier. Briefing for us is super important. And so we make sure that they understand the brand. We meet with them, and we have good relationships with them, and we get better content as a result. Then we worry about the discovery piece, and this is where the scale comes in. So how do you take influencers that are maybe smaller? I mean, we work with a lot of influencers that have, you know, 2,000 or less followers. Obviously, you're not going to get massive reach off of them. But what we do is we look at the media outlets that can amplify and distribute those voices. So we looked at the, remember the map, where the beauty publications or wellness publications intersect, and we say, okay, who should we work with that would amplify the voice of these influencers? And then we use that, you know, everyone gets the same brief essentially, and we work with the media publications so that everyone's talking about the same thing and using the same voices, and that's how we amplify our message. At the heart of this is our brand. So we talked earlier about losing control. And you can, if you work with influencers a certain way, you can lose control, and it's really easy to let it happen. But for us, the way we control the conversation is we make sure that our influence network matches our brand. So for Weleda, it was very important for us to focus on 3 key areas. The one was beauty, the second was the wellness lifestyle, and the third was yoga. And yoga kind of sounds like an interesting offshoot right now after all the conversation, but our target consumer, the yoga sort of represents the lifestyle, and the yoga influencers and the media publications actually hardly talk about yoga anymore. They talk about leading a natural life and a wellness lifestyle. So that's why it's important to us. And there are many opportunities that arise for our brand. We've had many people come to us after seeing the work we've done with others, and they want to work with us. And we've said no a lot of times, and I think saying no a lot of times to things that maybe feel like a big opportunity is really important to make sure that you're also controlling the message there.
I'm going to show you my favorite ways and hacks of using the new Skin Food line from Weleda.
I love Weleda Skin Food.
It's super lightweight. It's got that really beautiful glossy finish.
So just take a little bit and just press it right on the tops of the cheeks.
Just gives you that really beautiful glow. Can you see that beautiful glow on the cheekbone?
It's really pretty. Acts as like a little bit of a highlight situation.
You should always have one of these in your purse.
It will be the best thing for you to try.
So this is some of our mid-funnel activation that you saw for our launch of the Skin Food line extension. The Skin Food Original is a product that's been around since 1926. So we actually taking a product from 1926, line extending off of it, and trying to create buzz. And it's been amazing what these influencers have come up with in terms of content. And you can see here, they all looked different. Our brand is about health and natural and leading a wellness lifestyle, but we allow these influencers to do what they do, and these were all makeup artists, and what they do is show people how to use product to make them look beautiful. So we didn't, you heard it, they didn't talk about this is made from pansy and chamomile. They didn't talk about the brand that much. They really just showed their audience how to use it, so it came across as extremely authentic.
Hey there guys, I really love using Weleda's Skin Food Original Ultra Rich Cream. It was something you can do every night that's really good for your skin, really good for your face.
They sit all over my body.
It's like giving yourself your own self-care massage.
Just rub into the area that's particularly dry. It's plant rich, it's nourishing.
It goes on really smooth. It's not greasy. It's very moisturizing.
It's free from any synthetic fragrances.
Just kind of inhale some of this amazing skin cream and close my eyes and just let it all sink in.
So that's some of our yoga influencers, and you can see it has a different feel because their audience is concerned about chemicals. They are concerned about a little bit more functional benefits as they're using products, while, before, during, after yoga. And so it's interesting to see how different it is from a beauty standpoint and then from a wellness standpoint. And as a result, this allows us to partner with, like I said, those media publications. So what you see on the screen is actually some added value that we've gotten from some even media publications or PR events that we've done where we've had influencers come. And that just shows the media publications actually, we get the most added value that I've gotten in my, nearly 20 years of brand marketing, because the media publications understand that when they're connected to our influencers, it's haloing onto them as well. So it's a win-win for both of us. So in the end, we talked about the measures, and I didn't want to make it seem that we don't measure anything and we just go on gut and, as long as it feels good, it is good. We still definitely look at the numbers. So our influence network alone, we have the opportunity to reach 910,000 people, which is big, but when you're trying to grow a brand and get it on the map, it's not as big as we want it to be. But with our Earn network and all those connections and all the amplification, our whole network is about 90 million people. So that's basically nearly 100 times what the straight, total network would have been, because we focus on connections, because we focus on who was connected to who, how could we amplify their voice, and not just take a number from an influencer with, let's say, 1 million followers and go that route. We also monitor the conversations that consumers are having online about Weleda. So on the left is before we started this journey, and when I say journey, it's been about 1.5 years. On the left is what people were talking about our brand before. They were talking about online contests. That Weleda stretch is not a yoga move. It's actually the stretch mark oil for pregnant women. Not necessarily, how you want to build an entire beauty brand. And you can see on the right, this is what consumers are talking about now. It's much more concentrated. It looks like the message that we were putting out for the last 6 months. And it's a tighter conversation. So in effect, we actually have controlled the conversation way better by using influence than just using straight brand messages. And we still ended up with scale. So obviously we look at sales numbers and velocity and all those measures that take money to the bank. And in the 3 months that we've started the Skin Food campaign, we had double-digit growth at all of our key retailers. We went from a number 10 ranking in brands in the natural channel to a number 4 ranking. We have the number 1 SKU in personal care right now in the natural channel. And we have influencers coming to us, asking to work with us, and they get paid in product. That's all they want. They actually want to work for our brand because they feel like it's haloing their brand. But the ultimate is when you get on the short list, when consumers are making their short list. So this is Into the Gloss, the biggest beauty blog right now. And they did a pool, well not a pool, they did a bracket of skincare for March Madness. And you can see here that not only were we on the map here, but we went and became their number 1. This is a crowdsourced shortlist. So it was all consumer driven, consumer voted on the biggest beauty blog. So this was amazing for us as a brand to see. So that's my presentation for today. I do want to thank, I work with the greatest team and the greatest agency, and that is a piece of the equation here. So Josh Von Shiner from Von Shine Industries is social influence guru, magician extraordinaire. And Melissa Crespo Legend from my team works with him to do all of this great content. And we also have the Shipyard helping us amplify the voices through all of our digital channels and all of our media. Thank you.
You have a question here? Randy's going to be on the following panel as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, so my
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I can't close that.
Sorry, is that mine?
It's coming.
Hi, Jay Band with what?
Here we go. Ajay Bam with Warrell. I'm curious, can you talk about the role of video, user-generated video, and your strategy with respect to YouTube versus Instagram and long and short formats of videos?
Sure. So for video for us, we look at it as a holistic strategy. We actually, but in terms of influencers, we like the video through stories, but we like them to develop their own content. We actually did a content capture with the influencers and developed video. That's how we started this journey. And then they shared it out, and we also used it on YouTube. And it didn't work on the influencers' channels because it was not authentic. So the way we do it is we do our own content and videos for organic social or paid video. And we separated it now from the influencer. It's the same message, so the same messages are happening. So if it's skin food, that's what's happening across all the channels. but we don't use the same videos, you know, with the influencers that we do now with YouTube or pre-roll or our own organic.
Okay, if the panelists can make their way to the stage. Randy, I've got one question while they're coming up. Do the people inside your company, do they get this? I mean, this is an extraordinary story in social media. Do they get it?
We have a very small team, and the people that work on this completely get it. It's interesting because I think I'm probably the one with the most barrier because I came from big packaged goods where this like doesn't even exist. So my team has less barrier with this. The agencies, you know, Josh, Lance, have been so extremely helpful. They sit down, they explain everything to us like we're, you know, 5 years old, and everyone gets it, and now it's kind of just what we do. It's just been completely ingrained in our culture.
Thank you. Great presentation. Okay, if the panel can come to the stage.